My name is Zilla, and today we are live streaming what I hope is the last little bit of the Forgotten City, while I talk a bit about the scholarly things that we can glean from it. Let's just talk a little bit about introductory stuff. So first of all, hi. If you're here, feel free to say hi in chat. I welcome your comments. I welcome your questions. I'd love to hear from you. Second of all, if you're new here, I'm Zilla. I have some higher education degrees in the field of ancient Greek and Roman studies. I'm also very familiar with a lot of Indo-European linguistic type of things, that direction. And I love to do reception of antiquity and video games. So this game that we're playing, The Forgotten City, is a wonderful narrative game with very little combat that is set in an ancient Roman city, circa about 64 CE, and it is a mystery game. And we are at the end, so if you are new here, I am going to do a spoilery recap in a moment. But if you'd like to have it unspoiled, take a break, go back and watch my older streams. They're all available on my YouTube channel, Zilla's Athenaeum. Or go check the game out for yourself. It's definitely very interesting. It's a fun game to play. And then come back and see what we've done. If you don't mind being spoiled, this is your official spoiler warning. I'm about to go and do a very brief recap of what we've learned. So, we are an archaeologist plonked down in the middle of nowhere, Italy. We wash up on the Tiber. There's a woman named Karen who asks us to go in to see this ancient ruin after her friend Al, who's gone in there. And when we go in, we find much more than a little ancient temple, but a whole city that's crumbling. Al has been turned into gold somehow, and there is a wormhole. And if you step into the wormhole, as you eventually kind of must, you get teleported back in time to 64-ish CE. And you have to figure out what the heck is going on with this ancient Roman city and why it is stuck in this weird cycle. There is a rule here that the many shall suffer for the sins of one, and there are all these golden statues around who are the ones who have suffered. They have been turned into gold. So if anybody breaks the golden rule by committing a sin, the statues come to life and shoot everybody, turning them also into golden statues. We are the only ones who remember things from loop to loop, and we just keep going through the portal until we figure it out. So at this point, we have solved all of the sort of internecine issues, figured out why this is, who's making this happen, which is the magistrate Sentius. If we can get Galerius elected, he, makes everybody happy. Of course, then, other things happen, but point is, we've gone through all of this. We've found a way out. We've actually gotten endings 1 through 3 at this point, and we know there's only 4. But the biggest mystery has been what the heck is up with this place. And that hasn't been answered. So last week when we were playing, we got into the big temple. We went to meet the Lord of the Underworld himself, and it turns out that it was aliens. Insert meme here. I have so many feelings about ancient aliens. But brief recap, ancient aliens is a crazy racist trope. Oops, sorry. A hellishly racist trope. And this is very disturbing for a number of reasons, and I have been referring to Sir Hades, Nergal, whatever he wants to call himself, as racist Mr. Freeze. And none of my scholarly friends have disputed this nomenclature. So, there are 2 ways to get to ending number 4. And we'll see We'll see how long it takes to get through the one I want to do, which gives us the most dialogue options. Because you can talk the Lord of the Underworld into ending the Golden Rule. And that's what I want to do. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing we can do. I failed at it twice last week, and the reason I failed, I did look this up, and I am going to go buy a walkthrough for this. The reason I failed is because after you get to a certain point in the conversation, if you make a single error in which dialogue option you choose, he just decides to fight you. So we did that a couple of times. I will say that if you were watching last week and you saw me completely fail at getting out of the underworld ship, I did after that go and take Persephone's crown and run to the exit and get back to a new day. So the other way to get ending 4 is to bully Hades by showing him Persephone's crown. Or, sorry, Proserpina. We're using Roman names. If I feel like we have time after the long version, I might do that as well, just to see what it looks like. Because I just find this fascinating. But okay, I think that's enough chat. Let's dive in. Just make sure we are still running, because occasionally I get freezes. Looks good. Okay. Hello.
Salve, friend. Mind telling me who you are and what you're doing with that bow on your back?
You know, I think I am going to just have him go ahead and do everything he can.
Oh, sounds serious. I'm listening. Yulia? Oh no. All right, I can do that. Poor Virgil. Poor Rufus too, I guess. All right, got it. All right, let me see. Stop Fabia going in, but send the new arrival to the empty shrine. Understood. What? Are you... You're serious, aren't you? I doubt Domitius will let me talk to him, but I'll make sure he passes on the message. I'll go, but once I'm done, I'll need you to tell me how you know all of this.
Goodbye, our genre-savvy little friend. Speaking of little friends, I did want to show you. We do have our special guest this week. This is Freya. She will be taking up nap duties during the course of this stream. Alright, let's get on with it. So, up to the temple. Controls are a little bit iffy for doing things like climbing, but they work. Hopefully I won't have to do any running away this week. Onwards. One of the things that Hades told us last week, Dees, is that every single one of these statues is alive and aware. Isn't that horrifying? Let's go in, shall we? It is kind of funny that they call him Pluto. I mean, the Romans certainly did. They called him Pluto as well. That's a Greek word meaning plenty. So the Lord of Riches, for he has all of the souls of the underworld, which is probably where the idea of turning people into gold came from. But also they kind of point out that Charon is just known by their Greek name as well. Because they don't really have a Romanization. So I think that's kind of interesting. Even Equitia points out that it's sort of a Greek fable more than a Roman one. Here we go. Just can't with this cuneiform code. It just... I'm gonna be writing a public scholarship article about this game, and one of the things that I'm gonna have to talk about is the like snow crash idea that like cuneiform can rewrite your brain, that it's like the original language or some nonsense. I'm so tired, y'all. Okay, racist Mr. Freeze. Let's talk.
And here you are. Allow me to introduce myself. As you have already gathered, I've been known by many names. Nergal to the Sumerians, Osiris to the Egyptians, Hades to the Greeks, and Pluto to the Romans. But the one constant through it all has been my title, God of the Underworld. And I've been watching you with curiosity, mortal, ever since your arrival. You are unlike the others, aren't you? And what is more, you carry a weapon that was never intended for mortals to wield. And you do it so gracefully that there will be time for your reckoning later. First, as a reward for undoing the desecration of my obelisk, I will allow you to satisfy your curiosity. Ask what you will.
So, so I now have the option to just be like, see this sucker? I can break your whole operation. I don't wanna do that right now, but I am gonna go ahead
My
and
story
ask
is
him to go
many
through
thousands
this.
of years long. You will need to be more specific. What do you
This
wish
guy
to
has got to be so bored.
It is a matter of perspective. God is a label I was given by you mortals, not one I gave myself. Your ancestors revered me because to them, my knowledge and technology made me incomprehensibly powerful, just as you might seem so to an insect. But despite all that, there are rules even I must obey.
That comparison again of the difference between a human and an insect. Like, it just bothers me so much because you can't communicate with an insect. You can't become an insect. There's not a sufficient connection there. The comparison breaks down very quickly. You can much more easily make a comparison to certain apes or birds or dolphins, and that comparison would work much, much better, right? Like a species that we have considered and even in some cases tried to uplift. Uplift being, if you're not familiar, the conventional term in science fiction for a higher tech race making a lower tech race into something comparable, something sentient and sapient that can communicate and operate in the same realm.
My kin and I all adopted this form long ago, so that we might better understand and communicate with your kind. In time, we grew fond of the sensory delights it affords: desire, joy, ecstasy, even rage and sorrow, while an acquired taste can be addictive.
You know, this whole thing, like, just going back to the insect comparison, reminds me of nothing so much as Rachel Hartman's Serafina books, where there is a comparison of the relation between dragons and humans to humans and insects. And there it's made for dramatic effect, but it's made in a much more sort of compelling way. And still, it has this same problem within the world. And one of the things about dragons in that universe is they can take on human form, and when they do, they experience human emotions like this, and they find them addictive. And also a sign of weakness. So, like, this is a very interesting thread to sort of follow. What are the implications? What are the problems with all of it? And what might a truly alien being be like?
No. Long ago I swore to Persephone that I would remain in this form for as long as we remained among your kind. I must honor that. This is my beloved. Like me, she has been known by many names. Ereshkigal to the Sumerians, Isis to the Egyptians, Persephone to the Greeks, and Proserpina to the Romans. Or perhaps you might know her as the goddess of springtime, the cycle of life and renewal. Your gaze lingers too long.
Just thinking the model that they're using for Proserpina is clearly based on the same model they used for Fabia. Like, it's one of the character models that they have. Just like, you know, Pluto, Dis, whatever here is clearly based on the same model as Rufius. But honestly, Proserpina here reminds me nothing so much as my friend Hannah. Hannah, if you ever watch this, you could totally dye your hair black and cosplay this. This would be great.
That is my servant. You would have met by the river, though she wears many faces and goes by many names. Kumu-Tabal to the Sumerians, Kirti to the Egyptians, Charon to the Greeks, and Charon to the Romans. Her role is to ferry souls between the mortal world and this one, and to make their transition as seamless as possible. For that, she earned herself the infamous, if erroneous, moniker, the Ferry. We will talk more later. For now, ask your questions. As you wish. It has come to be known simply as the Underworld, and it exists because of a wager I made long ago.
So, the making of wagers is actually a really long-honored tradition. We can find betting games as early as, you know, prehistoric times, knucklebones and dice and evidence of like tokens. So this is kind of fun, just in that. Of course it's a wager, and wagers, of course, this is a very sort of Greco-Roman theme here, and wagers infamously play a big part in Greco-Roman history. There are lots of wagers involved in, for instance, the end of the Odyssey, a bet about who can string Odysseus's bow. I was talking about Odysseus's bow, wasn't I, at some point during this conversation? I remembered finally the name of the person who has Hercules' bow, after Hercules has ascended, and that is Philoctetes. Philoctetes more commonly. So, philo, lover of someone who loves. Kteno means to kill. So, a lover of killing. He is a great warrior. Awesome.
That is a long story, one that began over 3,000 years ago and continues to this day. You see, long ago, my kin and I set out from our home on Elysium to search for other forms of life among the stars. We discovered your planet and witnessed your kind evolving from primates into something lawless and barbaric. You all but destroyed yourselves, your 2 short lives being extinguished by violence and ignorance and disease. Yet Proserpina saw raw potential in you, and persuaded the rest of us it would be squandered without our intervention and stewardship. So we revealed ourselves to your people in a place called Sumer. We offered guidance in agriculture, toolcraft, and law, and you called us gods. For a time you flourished, but soon you were too many for us to oversee. And as you spread from that cradle of civilization, we saw something disturbing. We had sown the seeds of dependency and confusion, and soon you returned to your old ways of violence and ignorance, this time in our name. My kin had seen enough, and gave up on your kind, condemning you as barbaric and chaotic, scarcely more than animals. We began preparations to return to Elysium, our home world, a utopia unspoilt by conflict and unimaginable in its beauty. But my Proserpina could not bear to abandon your kind without guidance, and knowing it would force the rest of us to leave it behind, she made an extraordinary sacrifice. She gave up her immortality to descend permanently to the ranks of humankind. And so she began her inescapable trajectory toward death. Horrified, I acted swiftly. I placed her in suspended animation, in a deep frozen sleep, to prevent age and sickness from claiming her. And then I pleaded with Proserpina's father, who the Romans called Jupiter, to bring her with us to Elysium. It was and is my hope that once there, we might one day learn to undo what she has done to herself. But he refused. I did everything I could to persuade him, but he would not relent. He would rigidly uphold his final pronouncement. Humans were unworthy of ascension to Elysium, and no exceptions would be made. But seeing that I was aggrieved, he proposed a wager, the terms of which were as follows. If even one human city could prove itself capable of living without sin for a single year, then Proserpina and all of humanity would be permitted to join us in Elysium. My part would be to remain behind, the last of my kind, to watch over you, without interfering, and to sit in silent judgment. And so my reward has been to languish here, enduring a 3,000-year winter, waiting for the day your kind proves itself worthy of her faith in you, so that I might take her with me to Elysium and unthaw my goddess of springtime. And here I am, after all this time, still waiting.
So, one thing I don't remember if I talked about last time that he kind of brings up here is this sort of the ages of man, which is a concept we find in Hesiod in particular. Like, the concept of a golden age comes from this. So there's this legend that Hesiod either makes up or transmits. It's unclear with some of the oldest writings. That there were several iterations of humanity that the gods brought forth. The first age was the golden age, the best age, and everything was perfect and wonderful. And then there was the silver age, and everything was warlike, and everybody basically killed each other. And then there was the bronze age, which more or less had the same fate. And then the Age of Heroes is kind of the mythological age with like Hercules and Jason and all of that. And then the modern age, the age of humanity, the fifth and worst age, has this sort of downward trend. The past was always better, and so this concept of there was this age, the uplift from bestiality, and then sunk into chaos and violence again. It just kind of reminds me of that. So I think there is something to that.
There were also gods who, like me, have been known by many names, but perhaps you knew them by their Roman names. Our leader, Jupiter, as well as Neptune, Saturn, Juno, Minerva, Mars, Venus, Apollo, Diana, Vulcan, Vesta, Ceres, and of course, my beloved Persephone. As the first wave of your kind arrived from Sumer, I had them build a city in their own fashion, so that they might be comfortable and recreate their lives here. I had them build the entrance as a vertical shaft leading to baths to cleanse them of the sins of their former lives and to prevent escape. I watched wave after wave of Sumerians arrive, and as their civilization declined over the centuries, they were replaced by Egyptians. Of course, believing themselves to be the superior civilization, the Egyptians promptly built over what had been built before, and made all the same mistakes. After another 1,000 years, the Greeks began to arrive, and then the Romans, and they all did the same thing. They built upon the underworlds of their predecessors, renamed their gods, and ensured their foundations were forgotten. To ensure the wage was fair, it was important that my subjects were chosen at random. To this end, I had my servant distribute 1,000 tokens fashioned from silver, a rare element at the time, across all of Sumer. Whoever died while in possession of one of them would be located by my servant and ferried to this place, with no memory of how they arrived. As the tokens were discovered, they were traded, smelted, and fashioned into trinkets, and eventually coins, spreading to Egypt like seeds on the wind. Later, when they spread to Greece, they would come to be known as Charon's obol, or as coins for the ferryman. Some placed coins in the mouths of their dead, hoping they would awaken here, though they had no way of knowing which coins were fashioned from the original tokens. In fact, almost all of the tokens are accounted for, only 2 remain. And so after this wave destroys itself, as it is destined to do, your kind will have squandered the last of its potential to ascend beyond this rock, and Persephone is along with it.
Yeah, I've made my problems with this system clear, I think. But one thing that I don't know if I mentioned when I was talking about it last time is like the distribution of coins and whatever else that is made of silver. How could it possibly be uniformly from one civ to another, even? Like, Sumer traded with populations in India, they traded across the Silk Road with the Steppes people, they traded up into Europe. Why would it all have gone to Egypt? Like, it just doesn't make sense. But I suppose that's beyond the point.
It is a regrettable story. One of the first men who came to this place was a king of Sumer, and a troublemaker. To be rid of him, I returned him to his people, on the condition that my servant erased his memories of this place. But the erasure did not take completely, and he told stories of this place as if describing memories of a dream. His tales were committed to writing, which came to be known as the Epic of Gilgamesh, and his words were twisted and distorted over generations. Later, the Egyptians would adapt Sumer's stories of the underworld, making them wildly intricate and labyrinthine. Their Book of the Dead and Book of Gates bore less and less resemblance to this place in their priests' pursuit of profit. Then, when the Greeks began to arrive, they proved far more cunning, and in a series of incidents that will not be repeated, 5 of them escaped. A warrior named Heracles, 2 kings named Sisyphus and Theseus, a poet named Orpheus, and a Trojan named Aeneas. They each told embellished tales of this place, how to get here, and how to escape. And so from Sumer to Egypt, Greece to Rome, your kind has always told each other stories about this place, though each story contained only a seed of truth. Of course.
Okay.
That
So
is
let's-
merely the name your people have given to it, but yes, it is my doing. That is a story dating back to the very first wave. After the Sumerians finished building their city, the self-declared ruler threw a banquet to celebrate. Now this man was unmarried, and many women were vying to become his wife. Prestigious position, power, and influence in a new world. Of all the women, 2 were particularly ambitious. Both were beautiful, and both arrived at the banquet wearing eye-catching dresses and painted faces, their hair woven in elaborate fashion. The first woman, recognizing that she would require an advantage to win the ruler's affection, draped herself in jewelry, ornate necklaces, bracelets, and rings fashioned from gold. Seeing this ostentatious display, the second woman grew envious, for she had no such jewelry at her disposal. She prayed aloud to any gods that would listen to cover her in gold. And when her prayer went unanswered, she took matters into her own hands. While the others indulged at the banquet, the second woman summoned the first for a discussion in a quiet place. She checked that nobody was watching, and pushed her rival from the top of the ziggurat where she broke her neck on the rocks below. But I was watching, and I decided to answer her prayer. I took the golden bow left behind by Diana, and I shot that woman in the heart, covering her from head to toe in a layer of molten gold. And I left her to stand there, that she might serve as a grim reminder of what befalls those who sin in my domain. But that was not enough, for the entire city was tainted by her sin, and the wager could no longer be won. So I had no choice but to wipe the slate clean. I gilded them all to make way for a new wave, and began the wager again. And to this day, each of them, and all who came after, line the halls of this city, inanimate but conscious, suspended in time with only their sight and hearing preserved, so they may bear witness to and lament the folly of your kind for eternity, the silent golden sentinels.
You know, why not just set the timer over it? The wager didn't specify that. Just start the year from there. But also, I mean, what I'm really curious about in that story is it sounds like he went himself. He spoke to them himself. He presented himself as God, as Nergal, presumably, and told them to build the city, told them what to do. And I wonder what difference that would make, right? Why isolate himself all this time? He's clearly lonely if he's talking to me. Which brings up another good point. This servant of his, Charon, like, so she's the same race as you, but she's your slave? Or is it servant? A lot of times in translations of ancient texts, people will translate the word for slave as servant because, we don't want to talk about slavery, but they had slavery, and it sure seems like Charon is doing his dirty work. And the way that she talks to us when we bust out of the city in the other endings, you know, I don't think she's totally aligned with this bet, man. Like, it doesn't seem like she cares as much about being fair as he does. And what happens to Proserpina in that end? I just have so many questions.
I give your kind a second chance at life, as well as ample warning about my law. And when you disobey, and you always disobey, you force my hand, bringing terrible suffering upon yourselves. And so you ask if I am the one destroying your lives. And I say, no, you destroy yourselves. I am merely the means by which you do it.
I think I said ACAB at that last week, and I am right back in that headspace. Like, this is the justification a lot of police use for the extremes of violence that they commit against people who break the law or whatever they seem to be doing. Like, yeah, because shooting somebody who has a toy gun, I should not indulge myself in these terms. It will make me upset.
When my kin departed, they left behind many relics which I inherited. A consolation prize of sorts. The golden bow originally belonged to one of my kin, who the Romans called Diana. As my collection of golden statues grew, I chose the most ferocious among them, and equipped them each with a duplicate of her bow, and tasked them with hunting down the Forsaken at my behest. They became known simply as Furies. I'm able to commune with all of the statues in the city. Their ears are my ears, and their eyes are my eyes. If she was still conscious, I suppose she could, but she's not. Why do you ask? Then what an odd question.
Yep, so odd.
Do you plan to speak in sweeping generalizations, or are you going to give me an example?
So I apparently don't have to go through all of these, but let's go with this
The
one.
midwife and the palace, yes. How is that inconsistent with the rule? The rule is do unto others, meaning other people. Those statues are something else now. Bloodless shadows, mere shapes of their former selves. They are forsaken. What happens to them is no concern of mine. Applying this rule always requires us to interpret the meaning of the words. The literal interpretation helps to minimize the ambiguities of your primitive language. Supposing you're right, and my law has been broken, and I should turn you all to gold immediately. Is that what you want? Now tell me, what other sins do you believe I have overlooked? Do you honestly think you could do better? I should strike you down for that. Now, did you have any other questions before your reckoning?
Okay. So here I have to really be careful to
Very
start
well.
following this guide. Otherwise, we're gonna get attacked again.
Good. Then now it is time for your reckoning. Only, it seems, something is wrong. It has long been within my power to see into the hearts of mortals and weigh their deeds in life. But when I peer into you, I see only a blank slate, as if you did not exist until you appeared in this city. How is this possible? Charon, where did you find this one?
I do not remember ferrying you. How did you come here?
I'm from the future.
If that is true, then I sense the intervention of someone powerful.
How did you come to be in this time, mortal? Who brought you here?
We cannot know.
I do not know. My kin departed long ago, and Proserpina has slumbered for 3,000 years. Tread lightly, mortal. Enough of this. It seems I will need to put your reckoning on hold for now. But answer this. Why have you come here? What is it you seek?
Oh, I'd like you to put me on.
Your hubris is amusing, so I will allow you to make your case. But I warn you, if you anger me or waste my time with lies or wrong-headed arguments, you face death here. So, tell me, why should I put an end to the so-called Golden Rule?
All right. Here we go.
How so? And be specific. You have made a grave allegation, and I expect you to back it up.
Okay. So- Let's see. Oh, it doesn't actually tell me.
True. I have witnessed him doing that. He is a volatile and confused fellow, that one. I admit, I have grown disturbed watching him. His cruelty does seem to grow greater by the day. If you're right, my involvement has corrupted the very thing I sought to observe impartially. But if I were to accept that, are you telling me these humans could coexist peacefully, without theft or violence, without my law?
So, this is really interesting. I don't necessarily agree with either of these things. I think I'm expected to say this.
How so? And how is that working for you? So you say, and yet your world is still imperfect.
You know, I don't know what all this is about. It's not in the guide that I have, so I'm just hoping here. I might have to throw the crown at him after all. But you know, I don't agree with this point about the use of force. This is a very sort of pro-state violence position that I'm being backed into. So I'm gonna go with this.
Your words are breathtakingly naive. I reject your argument.
Okay.
That is a very serious accusation, mortal. What sin have I committed? What evidence do you have to support it?
Okay. This much.
Every
to have
one of
guide.
those people was guilty of failing to ensure their peers lived virtuously. They failed collectively, and so they were punished collectively. The Romans understand this, as did the Greeks before them. Ah, but I'm a god, and you are a mortal. Why would you expect me to treat you as I treat my own kind? You are not a peer. You are not a respected equal. Let me ask you this. Do you treat insects as you wish to be treated? Do you care for their well-being as you would your fellow man? Do you ensure they have food and shelter and protection from predators? Do you give them rights?
I mean, I want to.
Of course not, because that would be absurd, just as it would be absurd for me to treat your kind as equals.
Apparently pointing out that Proserpina is now one of us is the wrong thing to do.
Where to begin? Our lifespans exceed yours by thousands of years, in which time we accumulate vast wisdom and a mastery of technology you cannot begin to imagine.
Yeah, so, I do really want to ask him about lifespan, but that's not a good idea. But one thing I did see in there that's very interesting is this conflation of the idea of age and wisdom, which we still do frequently enough. People see an older person as more respectable, their opinions as having more weight, and certainly experience does build grounds for comparison and the ability to attain wisdom and knowledge. But they shouldn't be conflated, because there are plenty of young people who have the wisdom of pure morals, of purity and idealism. And I think that discarding that wisdom in favor of only seeing the world through the eyes of somebody with more experience of how things are is a mistake. Not that I think we should replace it. No. Just why dismiss it? Why say that, such things are impossible when they might not be? I am of the Jewish and perhaps even more so Quaker mindset that children are humans, and humans have value inherently. I don't think that age equates to wisdom from the other direction as well. There are plenty of corrupt, unwise, foolish, ignorant older people, and a lot of them are running my country right now. Yeah, I said it.
Because that is the source of our power over you.
Might makes right, does it?
You could say that. My kin have no superiors.
Yeah, perhaps you're not so different from humans as you think, is what I want to say, clearly, since I said that last time. But
That is true. Go on. Make your point, mortal.
I just wanted to double check myself, but yeah, obviously I can't just call him a hypocrite. Though, he is.
Let me ponder that for a moment. If you are right, then it would follow that all this time I have been in the wrong. But no, the very thought of it grieves me. How can I accept your argument when doing so would make me a tyrant and a monster?
This is a very wonderfully modern idea. The willingness to adapt and change, to admit your faults and atone for them, something that comes up a lot in modern philosophies. I think this is great. It's not that you never see it in the ancient philosophers, though. I mean, humans don't change that much over time. Even the Stoics that he's talking about, particularly Seneca, whom I am quite fond of and familiar with, has a good number of philosophical points about owning up to your mistakes and striving to improve, becoming a better person by rooting out the tendencies in yourself to do harm. So, you know, by his own logic there, by his own quotations even, you know, he's in this position because he doesn't want to see it, not because he shouldn't. So, calling him a monster, bad idea, tends to put people off, makes them stop listening to you. We can kind of see through the whole way that this dialogue tree is structured that any time that you clap back at him with any kind of vehemence, he just goes over the edge and decides you should die.
Wait, what? What are you saying?
So we could take the more Christian option, and that doesn't seem like it would go over well in this place, given the nature of his wager. But I also don't believe it, because sin is a concept that is not one I particularly believe in.
You have spoken eloquently, and yet, if what you say is true, it follows that my wager was fatally flawed from the beginning. But that would mean Jupiter, Proserpina's father, who knew more about you than anyone, posed a wager I could never win. Why would he do that?
I like these options. So I love that it's just like, you're an asshole, you're an asshole, you're an asshole, and he was scared that you were going to take his power. Particularly the one where he didn't want a potential challenger in Elysium. This speaks to a very mythologically rooted cycle of gods that we see all throughout Indo-European mythology. So you get things like, you know, the creation myth, the more common version of the creation myth in Greek mythology. You have Uranos, the sky god, and Gaia, the earth goddess, and Kronos, their son, takes the place of his father, and kills or castrates him, depending on the version. Usually castrates. And then Kronos and his wife Rhea birth the Olympians, and Zeus is the one who kills his father Kronos and becomes the king of the gods. And so Jupiter, Zeus, being afraid that another of his kin might overtake him, is a very realistic thing to think here, at least in terms of that. But I also think that it's very plausible that the way that Hades, Pluto, Dis, Nergal here has set things up, it seems very plausible that that is just recounting a litany of generations, that they're not immortal, they're just long-lived. So, you know, that might not lead anywhere. And in particular, our guide tells us it doesn't lead anywhere, so I won't do it.
A mistake? But he is the best and greatest of us. Your words sting me, mortal. But perhaps it is what I deserve.
It totally
As
is.
difficult as this is to admit, I have suspected as much for a long time now. And I cannot deny it any longer. I've been so fixated on taking my beloved to Elysium that every time one of you sinned, it wore away my hope of being with her again. In time, I began to despise your kind for making her believe that you could ever be better than you are. But my rage was not born of malice. Quite the opposite. Everything I have done, I did because I loved her. Who knew this empathy of yours, which you celebrate so much, could have such a dark underside? This has gone on too long. It is time for me to let go of this form, of her, of all of you. But know this. If I abandon the way Zheng Li for Elysium, neither she nor your kind may ever ascend.
Yeah, I mean... So, here we come back to this sci-fi concept of ascension, right? We talked about this a little bit last week. The idea of a physical, mortal race transcending its form and becoming enlightened or ascended, and sort of moving on from the universe. And this is a very common sci-fi trope and a very common sort of sci-fi stand-in for gods whenever that comes up. And we've already known from what he's said that he very much has this this background of, like, we are ascended, we take human form and become grounded in the physical, in the emotions, like we don't have those. So, you know, this is one of those, what if Ascension isn't actually good? Any fans of The Dig out there? Like the old LucasArts classic, my personal favorite. I grew up on it. Hey, maybe that's what I should play next. Now there's a treat. If I can get it working, I definitely will. Oh, that's a good idea. You heard it here first. Like, Ascension isn't always good, and it isn't always straightforward. But also, you know, you find Elysium beautiful and perfect, but what if we just want to live our lives? Why aren't our lives good enough? Are we not able enough? Is this racist and ableist? Whew.
Very well. I will have Charon make arrangements to ferry the others. But as for you, be aware you will be separated from the rest.
Well, that makes sense.
Once this exodus begins, the events that brought you to this moment will never have taken place, and you will have created a paradox. What will become of you is difficult to predict, but that is the risk you have taken by interfering in the natural flow of time. Now, are you ready?
Yep.
Farewell, mortal.
Sayonara, sucker. Now, from my understanding, that means that my character, that I just die. Because from what Charon said in other endings, I shouldn't exist. But, here we are, and here's Al, and both of us really ought to be dead. Because Charon should be gone.
Oh. Hi there. Gave me a bit of a fright. Thought I was in here alone. I'm Al.
Well,
Well, Here I am. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
So, as I suspected, where you are when you create the paradox determines where you are in the city when you come out. So, all right, good to know.
Oh, did that lady in the forest send you in here after me? I guess I lost track of time, learning about the history of this place, and it is extraordinary. I'm fairly certain you and I are the first people to set foot in this city for about 2,000 years. Fortunately for us, the last person in here was a Roman man named Galerius, who inscribed an account into a tablet. Apparently, there was a community of 20-something people trapped in here, and living in fear of a curse they called the Golden Rule. They believed that if even one person sinned, an unknown god would cast them all into gold, like the 1,000 people who'd lived here before them. Then, one day, just as Galerius had finished praying for a good harvest at the shrine of Proserpina, an oracle appeared and told him how to solve the ills of the city, like saving the life of a dying woman, foiling an assassination attempt, and so on. Meanwhile, the oracle walked up to the temple of the mysterious god, this one right here, and demanded an audience. And the doors just opened up to her. Nobody knows what went on in there, but Galerius wrote the oracle must have been more persuasive than Odysseus, because the next thing he knew, the ground shook and the voice of that god rang out over the city. The many have suffered long enough. Unfortunately, Galerius' account just sort of stops after that, leaving a lot of questions unanswered. What became of him and the other people who lived here? What happened to all the golden statues? And did this mysterious oracle single-handedly undo the curse that had terrorized people for hundreds of years?
I really like that. Oh, I'm glad that Galerius is the one who wrote it. That makes me very happy. My baby cinnamon roll magistrate. So now we're an oracle, which makes total sense. We know the future from Galerius' point of view, and we never did tell him why. I don't know if telling him why would have changed anything, but you know, it's just sort of fascinating, the wisdom of Odysseus. So, first of all, he would have written Ulysses, because that's the Roman name for Odysseus, but they wanted to make sure you recognize it. So, Odysseus we think of as, the one who solves problems by persuasion rather than violence. And I bet that if we had intimidated with the crown instead, we would have gotten a reference to Heracles. Not that there's any way for Galerius to have known that, now that I think of it, but, well, now I kind of want to find out. I might. We'll see. It's already 4, but maybe.
What? Oh, I see. For a moment there, I thought you were serious. Anyway, I think I found a way out through the aqueduct that brought water into the city. Follow me.
Right, and he has no reason to believe us because, oh, here we are, the exit to the aqueduct. He has no reason to believe us because unlike the other couple of endings where we got to meet Al, he didn't have any mention of our name. And it's shut. Okay.
I'm gonna pause here for a moment and make sure nobody else has ever lured into this temple. You go on ahead. I'll be there soon.
Alright. So what now? Is Karen still here? Doesn't seem like she should be. Oh, but there she is.
You're back! But you're alone. Does that mean you didn't find Al? Oh, what a relief.
Thank you so much. I was beginning to think you'd both become trapped in there. Why don't you tell me what you discovered while we wait?
Ah, I see.
Okay.
I
So
thought
it is
you might.
actually Charon.
Well, now you know. I suppose you have questions. You can just call me Charon, if you like. I am sorry I was not completely honest with you when we first met. I do not enjoy deceiving people. Believe me, I do not. But I have learned, from 5,000 years of experience, that most people find comfort in familiarity, in gradual change, and coming to see the truth in their own time.
I suppose that's a hint for how to persuade Hades.
That you died, of course. You were dead when I brought you here. My role, as the servant of the god of the underworld, has always been to assist the chosen to cross the threshold from the land of the living to the land of the dead. Usually, when people do not remember how they died, it is because they suffered a terrible trauma. Most souls would rather not remember. Ask yourself honestly, do you really want to know?
So
As you wish.
just
You were murdered. You were exploring an old tomb when you discovered a cache of forgotten relics, including 2 silver coins of ancient origin. Unfortunately, as you emerged into daylight, you were set upon by 2 thieves. A nearby hiker saw the scuffle break out and leapt to your aid, trying to help you recover your bounty. You both fought bravely, but your assailants were armed, and you were not. There was nothing you or your ally could have done. He died instantly at the scene, and you followed a few hours later. That man's name was Al Worth. You were each in possession of a sacred coin, called Charon's Opal by some, and so it was my duty to bring you here.
Yeah. This is what I'm really interested in. It's like, why is she still here? Why are we here at all?
It means I am now bereft of purpose. There is nobody else to ferry here. Nobody to keep you company. After 5,000 years, the underworld has finally run its course.
Yeah, I want to ask you more questions about that.
I see no point in keeping you here. But I have to ask one thing. That you keep this to yourself.
Look! Here comes Al now. Al! It's so good to see you. You were gone so long I thought I'd never see you again.
Kinda lost track of time in there. You wouldn't believe what we found. The ruins of a long-forgotten city. And there was a tablet describing an oracle who confronted a god and undid an ancient curse.
Sounds like quite a story. And I look forward to hearing all about it. But you two look exhausted. Why don't you hop in my boat and rest while I ferry you back to civilization?
Sounds good to me.
And you? Are you ready to go home?
Ooh, 1 year later. I didn't read about this, I just got enough to get me through that conversation. While we're waiting for it to load. Oh, does that mean it's gonna load right now as I start talking? Yes. Oh, that is a little bit disturbingly like the introduction to the spaceship, including the pattern in the floor here that I was talking about. And oh look, this is the mosaic from the bathhouse, the Poseidon mosaic. This is Kuros. I guess it's an Apollo. At least they didn't knock his dong off. So I mentioned before actually that the way that they conceived of beauty was in talking about the small penis is the thinking man's penis, and so the bigger your penis is, the more, you know, you're just some dumb guy. And so this is meant to be a statue of somebody with great wisdom. I also want to talk about this little spur of marble here between the hand and the leg. That kind of helps us, there's another one down here between the two legs. That kind of helps us date the sculpture a little bit. Because these kinds of spurs are meant to prevent the marble from breaking as it's carved, because the more finely a piece, like the thinner a piece is as it's separated from the main structure, the more likely it is to break over time. And the later you get into, say, the turn of the calendar, as it were, or even into the second sophistic in CE eras, the less of that you get, and you start to get more experimental and often, therefore, more broken pieces. I just want to see what else you can see here. Can you see sandals? A little bit. You can see there's some lines here that might be where something would be painted, and this cloak over here has very simple folds, so that's also a marker of when it was carved. You can also see his hair is this very sort of flat style, and his eyes are very big, which is also an older style. And obviously this would have been painted. This would have been brightly colored. And here we have a very similar Greek woman. So this hole here indicates an inserted piece, so her hand might have been a separate piece of marble. But also you can see where it was too far out from the body with no spur and it was broken off. The folds are a little more intricate. It might be a little bit of a later piece, but not too much later, as you don't see the technical depth that you get once people start using drills. Because they would use hand drills to make big, deep folds and spaces. I like this little museum, obviously. I wonder, can I go this way? No, okay. Well, we didn't see this anywhere. This is a mosaic of a lion killing a horse, it looks like. Oh yeah, a lion killing a stallion in specific. So this is, it's a very Roman style. I don't recognize it offhand. But it's got some nice detail work in it. The little blood splatters there. And now, just because I have to know what the signage is like. Very, very bad signage. This is very bland. Everything straight ahead. You know, like, what? And why would you have two of them? No. Don't do that, museums. Don't do that. Okay. This is probably out.
Hey, you made it.
He looks pretty
It's
different.
great to see you again. I read your book, and what the critics said about it. I guess they weren't ready for your theories about the underworld. Anyway, after everything you've been through, I thought you might appreciate some good news. So after we got back to the real world, I started doing some research into the people mentioned in Galerius' tablet, and I found something strange. I'm sorry I've been so cryptic. I've been dying to tell you, I just really wanted you to see this for yourself. Why don't you head on down there? I'll catch up with you at the other end.
Okay. This sign is terrible. What the heck? There is very little information in this sign. I don't like it. And the Roman numerals are not legible to everybody. Why is the play symbol backwards? And can I even interact? No, I can't. And don't tell me that the whole thing is just flipped, because this Apollo Belvedere is the correct direction. That's the Apollo statue that we saw in his temple in the underworld. Oh, this is great. This is what's become of our obelisk, isn't it? Because we have the Greek vase painting on this side. I suppose this is meant to be a Roman sculpture. Here's a Sumerian bas-relief. And yep, there's an Egyptian Ankh and an Osiris figure with the triple crown. So the United Egypt, I think. I'm not an Egyptologist, don't sue me. The cartouche down below, presumably stating his name. But he has the pharaonic crook and what is that called? Some kind of thresher. Alright, yeah, it's called a flail. Oh, I can inspect this one. So those two earlier statues down there were definitely Greek, or they could have been Roman copies of Greek statuary, which happens a lot. This one is definitely later. You can see... the way they have the light here is very hard to... You can see the sort of the detail work on his beard and face, and particularly his ear is much deeper, indicating that drill is being used. They're not as afraid of breaking the marble. And indeed, they have this arm all the way out without the marble having broken off in the intervening years. This garment is actually rather odd. It's not a full toga or chiton, it's just kind of a drape. And the stance is very strange. Like, it doesn't have a base, nothing to help it stand up. That might be a hole in the foot where a support would have gone. So that makes me think that it's either not a real statue, or that it's a statue that is part of a bigger work, like a full 3D collection of statues that would have been held up by other things. And this base obviously does not go with it. It's not the same color of marble, it's not inscribed, the feet aren't attached. I mean, he seems to just be floating there. And you won't see that in a museum. Here we have another Apollo, and here we have Galerius.
Remember me?
What?
It's a crazy story. After you disappeared, Charon appeared and told us she was returning us to the world. Even gave us some coins to help us start our lives over. Only, for some reason, she returned us to your world instead of ours. Anyway, I know we only ever had that one conversation, and I wasn't even sure if you'd remember me, but I wanted to say thanks for freeing us from the underworld and giving us a second chance at life.
Wow.
Oh, I used Charon's gift to buy a farm in Umbria. Got a villa on it too, with enough room for Dooley, of course. It's hard work, but I sleep soundly every night. I'm finally my own man, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
I have to know.
I know! I can't believe my luck either.
Yay!
But we're engaged and living together.
That's so
We're
cute.
planning to get married next spring. If you're going to be around, we'd love to see you there.
Yes! Yeah, I got invited to their wedding. It's gonna be so cute!
Of course, there's a whole museum full of people waiting for a chance to thank you, so you better keep moving. We'll speak again soon, my friend.
Right. I was talking about this statue, which is, just the first one again. That Greek statue from the beginning. Here's our little Lalarium. The exact same one that we had all through the underworld. And, okay. We have a slightly different Apollo? Question mark? Yeah, it looks like an Apollo statue. Again, you can see that the cloth here is being used for balance and to make sure that the statue stands upright. It's got this off-kilter pose that is characteristic of certain like you might see this in the 4th century or something like that. Oh my gosh. Oh, what is Equitia wearing? Oh my gosh. This, of course, you will never see in the real world because this is that frieze of Keres and Proserpina with the portal. Right? So, no. But let's go talk to Equitia.
You're here. It's lovely to finally meet you. Galerius told me all about you. So, you're the hero who somehow vanquished the last of the Roman gods. As I'm a priestess, you realize you've put me out of work. I'm just teasing. Actually, and it still feels a little sacrilegious to say this, I'm finding life after religion quite enjoyable.
I'm still just kind of marveling at this dress she's got on. Because it's slightly evocative of her white vestal garments, right? But why does she have a center boob window? Oh my god. Who wears this to a freaking museum? This is not the red carpet, Equitia. I kind of wonder what the other women are going to be wearing, honestly. Women in video game. The top is also interesting. We've got the 3 little gold adornments, I guess, that are vaguely lion head shaped. They actually kind of remind me of the tripods. Not that that's relevant to anything.
Galerius and I are engaged and expecting. We've just bought a lovely villa in the countryside with room for a large family. And Dooley too, of course. It feels like the world has just opened up for us. There's so much to learn, and so many more possibilities for our children than we ever imagined. We're just so thankful for what you did for us. For all of us. Oh, it's sweet of you to ask. She recovered nicely. In fact, she's here somewhere, if you'd like to ask her yourself.
I would.
See you at the wedding, I hope.
For sure. Ah.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Dooley.
Hello. I'm Dooley. Galerius said you're very nice and a big helper. Thank you for getting us out of the bad place. I didn't like it. I live at Galerius and Equitia's house. They look after me now and help me remember when I forget things, like brushing my teeth. Treasure? Oh, I forgot about that. I like my box now. Galerius got me a box that tells stories. It's my favourite thing.
Story boxes are
Yeah.
great.
They're fun.
keep him away from the kids' YouTube channels, though.
Bye-bye.
Okay, nothing on that plinth. Looks like another fragmented Apollo, maybe? Army. That's worrying. Okay, that looks like a Roman-style statue. You've got the more finely carved hair, the deep folds under the arms where you need a drill to get. It clearly used to be holding something, and probably actually was like holding like a sword or a spear or possibly a mirror, depending on who that's supposed to be of. We've got that Roman shield and helm. So let's get talking to people.
Hey.
Hi there, I'm Horatius. I understand we have you to thank for giving us a second chance at life, and reuniting Scintilla with us as well. So, thank you. I'm living up north and studying in the military academy in Modena. I'm going to be an officer one day. The world's changed a lot, but some things stay the same. Would you believe we're still studying military tactics from my time? Alexander the Great, Caesar, Hannibal Barca. Still, I have to keep challenging myself to let go of old ways of thinking and embrace the new. As Seneca wrote, the ones who pioneered our paths aren't our masters, but our guides.
Well, good for him. And it is true that the modern militaries around the world do rely a lot on ancient military texts from around the world. Sun Tzu is studied just as often as Hannibal Barca, as he put it. So that is actually a really fascinating thing to bring up. For a career soldier like Horatius, that might well have been very appealing. Though honestly, I thought he would be done with this cop nonsense.
Ah, you remembered that. Thank you. I grieved for a time, but that's done. In the words of Epictetus, as those who rode behind triumphant generals remind them they are mortal, remind yourself your precious one isn't one of your possessions, but something given for now, not forever.
So, he's branching out in his philosophies. Another Stoic, I believe, a Greek one.
Thanks. Oh, and I don't know if you've heard, but a few of us are going for drinks later. It'd be nice to, chat with you some more.
Are you hitting on me? Whatever, it's fine.
Great.
Buddy?
He's not my... Oh, I see what you did there. Good one. He had more trouble adapting than most. He got himself disqualified from the UFC, so he started some kind of underground blood sport tournament, like we had in Rome. Suppose it appealed to people's baser instincts. And they say he made some good coin, killing a bunch of men like that. But his luck finally ran out, and his life along with it. You know what they say. Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Oh, yeah, you can't do that in the modern world, can ya? Oof, yikes. But he's right to point out that there's always a market for any vice you can think of, including snuff, blood sport. I can't say I'm sorry to see him gone, but...
Perhaps. See you at drinks later, I hope.
I take it you're the Oracle. Thanks for coming. Actually, I changed my name to Cynthia. I didn't want to be associated with Sentius after what happened. I'm not sure if you heard, but after you drove Pluto off, Proserpina emerged from the Great Temple. She knew right away what none of us had figured out about that psychopath. He'd been keeping my little sister locked up in the upper cistern all that time. But he's been dealt with. He's... you know what? The important thing is, we'll never see him again.
So, voila, the power of choosing one's own. And here we are, respectfully, even in our minds, as it were, reading her as Cynthia. She seems, of all people, like she would fit much better in the modern world than the ancient.
Anything I want. I'm a woman of means in a vast new world. I can go wherever and do whatever I please. Of course, I mostly just stay in my villa and have my servant Alexa summon things for me, because it's just awful out there. Barbarians everywhere.
Oh, don't get involved with Bezos, Cynthia. You don't want to go down that road.
He's still there, all alone. The last golden statue in the underworld.
Ooh.
Trapped in a metal shell, slowly losing his mind until the end of time. Eternal torment. Just what he deserves, if you ask me.
Wow. Wow.
Meh, I try not to think about him at all.
The voice acting so much. Yeah, apparently Proserpina's not immune from her high and mighty judgments. Whew! Do not piss her off, man!
You too. See you around.
It is kind of amazing how quickly they all seem to have adapted like that.
You're the Oracle, right? Oh, of course, sorry. And I never got a chance to thank you for telling Galerius how to save my life. And of course, getting me and all of us out of a terrible situation. Oh, I barely recognize myself. I'm living in a house share in London with my wonderful girlfriend. And I'm studying English at university. Eventually, I want to travel the world and write about it. Turns out, it's about 30 times bigger than the Roman Empire ever was. Did you know there are entire continents Rome never knew existed? And you can travel almost anywhere in an aircraft, which is rather like flying on a Pegasus, but much more comfortable. Oh, sorry, you already know all that, of course. I'm just so excited. There's so much to see and learn and write about.
So I do have to say there are some things in the way that she put that are not quite what I would expect from a Roman dropped into modern times. I don't think she would say a Pegasus. I'm sure all of you picked up on that right away. Pegasus is a singular character. The idea of multiples. I mean, maybe she's just been watching My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Who knows? But also just like, yeah, the Romans did not know that the Americas existed. They did have an idea that the world was round. They knew that from measurements made, in Greece, in Egypt, by themselves. They knew that. They knew the world was round. They knew that it was big. They had an idea of how big it was. I can't remember if they already knew correctly how big it was, but I think they did. Like the whole thing with Columbus thinking that that he had figured out the world was round and everybody else thought it was flat. That's not actually what happened. He just thought it was way smaller than everybody else thought it was. But yeah, I mean, I like occasionally pulling back and thinking about the everyday wonder of the world that we live in, because it is kind of magical.
I have noticed people from your time have no idea how fortunate they are. I hope to change that. One day. Last I heard, Malleolus kept insisting he was the last rightful ruler of the Roman Empire, and wound up being committed to a psychiatric hospital. As for Claudia, She was always so viciously unhappy. Someone said she'd blown all her money on wine, trying to drink herself back to the underworld. After the horrific way they treated Ulpius and me, I can't help feeling a sense of... what's that German word? Schadenfreude?
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised Malleolus didn't figure out a way to sort of capitalize on his new environment, but the writers of this game seem interested in people getting what they deserve. That, you know, just as a theme of the game. What do you deserve and who determines that? And I think this ending is telling us that people get what they bring to themselves, which is true in some senses. It's true for some bad outcomes.
Thank you. You're very kind. Ugh. Someone told me she was boasting about getting her claws into some rich prince, and how she was going to be living the high life from now on. Even in your time, life still isn't fair.
Okay, good.
Apparently he proposed before they'd even met. And last I heard, she'd bought herself a first-class one-way ticket to join him in some exotic place called... what was it? Nigeria?
Oh, no.
Some people have all the luck.
Oh, nope. For a second, I was real excited that they were giving us the, like, not everybody gets what they deserve shtick, but... well, there we are.
Really? Huh. I feel better already. Thank you. You too! If you're ever in London, let me know. We can go to bars and drink wine and listen to the stories of the 9 million people who live there. I hope so.
Seriously, if I went through all this, I would be like, yes, I want to hang out with all of you as often as I possibly can. Oh, this ought to be an interesting one. Oh, I was going to sort of comment on what people are wearing, aside from the sort of boring ones. So, Cynthia, wearing a stylish little black dress, makes total sense. She's loaded, she's independent, she is fashionable, and she is wearing an approximation of Roman sandals, but from the fashion world. It looks like we see the same model on Lucretia here. Oh, she's got toenail polish on? That's cute. They did have nail polish in parts of the ancient world, particularly Egypt, so it's not that weird. But look, she's got nail polish on. That's so cute. Yulia really looks like businesswoman-y, doesn't she? I really love it. The very, like, practical flat shoes and button down. She's gonna be a great writer, I can just tell. Okay. Lucretia. Talk to me. Also quite fashionable.
You are here.
Black and white dress.
It's nice to finally meet you. Lucy is fine. I'm making an effort to blend in, as you can see. We are all trying to keep a low profile. If the world knew we died 2,000 years ago and were suddenly brought back to life 12 months ago, they'd never leave us alone. Speaking of which, I wanted to say thank you in person. I'd say the gods smile on you, but I hear you drove the last of them off. So... I'm studying to get into medical school. As much as I resented the responsibility of keeping everyone in the city alive, when it ended, I realized I missed it. So I guess I'll just keep saving the world, if begrudgingly, one patient at a time.
So that has some complicated ideas behind it. If you're wondering why I'm reacting that way, I suggest that you start looking into quotes about how black women will save the world, and the expectations put on black women to do just that. That is a complicated place they've put their black woman character in. It's not that I don't think that it's awesome that she's going to medical school, because it is awesome that she's going to medical school. I think that's really good. Oh, let's hope this doesn't freeze us. Are we back? Are we back? Yes, okay. So it's awesome that she is going to medical school and has sort of a self-focused purpose in life. I was going to say self-centered, but that has a totally different connotation. Because, you know, her backstory was all about, you know, her husband mistreating and cheating on her. So I'm glad she's doing it for herself.
Don't be a stranger.
She also looks very fashionable, very well put together, and I'm happy for her.
Hey.
Okay, so we have our Diogenes bathtub here. That our Greek philosopher was living out of, and also our seated Demeter statue with the snake at the bottom. So, oh, this is in fact our hermit philosopher. Good for him. He's still around. He's
I take it you're the
little bow
oracle
tie.
everybody's talking about. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
He looks just like every old white professor I've ever had. It's great. I had this old German philosopher professor who looked so much like this, and he was one of my favorites.
We have. I'm sorry, I don't remember. In any case, I'm Philip. I never thought I'd leave that cave, let alone the city. And now I'm living in the 21st century. What a time to be alive. And it seems I have your Catabasis to thank for it.
So, apparently his name that whole time was Philippos, a good Greek name. And he is pointing out our Catabasis, our descent into the underworld and returning. Kata basis, meaning to step down.
I'm working as a consultant to the Faculty of Classics at Cambridge University, helping fill the odd gap in their knowledge. Not that I need the money, but I do love being around enlightened minds again. My sincere thanks once again.
Look at the freaking plaid suit. Oh my god, he just needs a tweed jacket with elbow patches. Georgios! Look at this
You must be
bright,
the legendary
royal
oracle.
purple jacket.
It
I
is
love
a
it
sincere
so
privilege
much.
to finally make your acquaintance. I am Georgios. I am told we have you to thank for freeing us from Hades, and for that I am most grateful. I am reacquainting myself with Greece. It has changed so much over the last 2,000 years, I barely recognize it. This is at once heartbreaking and thrilling. Perhaps one day, once I have seen all of this new Greece and sampled her delights, I will settle down in Santorini in a villa overlooking the Azure Aegean Sea. I hope you will join me there and regale me with the story of how you faced off against the fearsome god of the underworld and won.
Oh, consider me there. Absolutely. Oh, this is great. So, I complained when we first met Georgios because he was, the clothing merchant with all these beautiful wares, and he was wearing this just like dinky tunic. But look at him now! Look at this amazing sharp suit in like this purple that would have been impossible at the time. I love it. I love it to pieces. And Santorini is a beautiful place. It's the southernmost island in the Cyclades, the islands in the Aegean that are sort of between mainland Greece and Crete. It's actually made up of 4 smaller islands, because there's a volcano in the center that, you know, has erupted multiple times, causing sort of these rings to form. People think that that might have been the inspiration for Plato's completely made up, by the way, like even in the thing he says he's making it up, idea of Atlantis, which is made of concentric rings of land and water. But the sea there is this clear, bright blue. There are places with red and gold sand. The buildings are like when you see those pictures of Greece with like the white buildings and the light blue domes, that's usually Santorini.
You too, my friend.
It's also got some absolutely stellar ruins. Like, just beyond what you would know. Look at Fabia's cute little dress! Oh, she's adorable! And sneakers.
You're the one we've been waiting for. I'm
What is that
Fabia.
neckline? What is that neckline?
I wanted to say thanks for sending Galerius to save my life. I don't know how you knew, but I would have been crushed by that shrine for sure. I'm just so happy to be here with you and everyone together again, even if it's just for one more night. Well, it's not like I have to work with all the silver Charon gave me, so I just do what makes me happy. Mostly that means baking for my friends and looking at memes while binging TV shows in yoga pants. What a time to be alive.
Oh, yes, I love her. I am a little disturbed about the dress, seeing it closer up with the pearl necklace. That she's giving me very Wilma Flintstone vibes. But you know, she likes memes. She might have done that on purpose. But I'm glad she's comfortable. Did you see those shoes? She's just rocking it.
Thank you. I really am. You too.
Okay, we have one of our lion statues. Did I talk about these? I don't even remember if we got to talk about these. These are real. Lion statues, lion sculptures of this sort, sort of common in Mycenaean work. So, Age of Heroes-ish. But very old work. This sort of like weird smiley lion, especially. There aren't lions in Greece, so they mostly hear about them, right? And they're making their sculptures and bas-reliefs based on what they hear about them. Now, with the way this body is shaped, they might have some idea. They might be working from like an actual cat, but I don't remember where this particular item is from, but it is a real one. And what do we got on this side? Okay, hi.
Some soiree, innit?
Well, of course he's wearing like the sharp suit, looking like an absolute NFT bro, lounging on this ancient Roman couch in front of a sign saying not to touch the furniture. Like, clearly this is a recreation. We do not have textiles this solid from that time.
Ah, hello at last. You must be the oracle I've heard so much about. I'm Dacius. Listen, I wanted to express my sincere appreciation for what you did. If it wasn't for you, I'd never been able to sell all those useless old relics I accumulated. Whatever you did in that temple made me a very wealthy man. Thank you.
That was entirely an
Such a
unintended
acerbic
outcome.
wit. I love it. I took the money I made from selling my trinkets and started investing in the stock market. That's where the real money is now. In fact, I was hoping to ask your advice, you being the Oracle and Future Seer and all that, on which stocks I should invest in next. I can't decide between fossil fuels, tobacco, gambling and arms. What would you recommend?
He just never stops being scum. NFTs. Get into NFTs.
Don't be like that. You can tell your old pal Dacius. I won't take no for an answer.
All our options are lies.
Oh, of course, yeah. I was just thinking the same thing. I'll go home and buy up as much stock as I can tonight. I'm gonna make a bloody fortune. Of course, don't let me keep you. Thanks again for the tips, my friend.
Good evening.
Hi. Now here's a classy dress.
Oh, hello. It's lovely to meet you. I've heard so much about you.
She is dressed modestly, as befits a devout Christian. And when I say modestly, I mean like the way that weirdo Christians, I'm sorry if that's a little bit oddly worded, the way that more extreme and fundamentalist type Christians describe modesty, where you cover your neck, your shoulders, and your knees. I actually didn't see if this was long enough to cover her knees, but I think it is.
I'm thankful that you're here. I was sure the person who drove off the last pagan god would have more important things to do than visit the likes of us. But thank you for coming and for saving our lives. What you did was extraordinary, and I'll never forget it. I'm living in Rome again, in a charming little flat by the Tiber, not far from my old place. Oh, and I'm training to be a crisis counselor. After you sent Galerius to persuade Ulpius not to take his own life, I was inspired. I just want to spend the rest of my life helping people, like you helped him.
Good.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I do wish more people would get into seeing that kind of thing as a sympathetic problem and not, oh, this isn't, a good person or they deserved it or something. There's so much of that online these days. I wish more people would think about what happens when you come to that moment and how I think a lot of people do. So she doesn't have her knees quite covered, but it's close. Olivia's looking good. Look at her hair. She has gone and gotten modern hairdressing techniques.
Greetings. Thank you for your kind words and for liberating us all. In all the time I was in the underworld, I never once imagined that I might end up in a place so much like Elysium.
Not that much like Elysium. But yeah, she was aware of where she was, so nothing in that would have come as a shock to her.
I'm recovering. Octavia was kind enough to let me stay with her for a while, at least until I'm well enough to be independent again. Ah, you remember that. I'm a little tired of Ovid, but that's all right. I have 2,000 years worth of poetry to catch up on now.
There's a benefit.
I'm already up to the 19th century, and am quite enjoying the work of a fellow named Poe. I think I may have found a kindred spirit. Men have called me mad, but the question is not yet settled whether madness is or is not the loftiest intelligence.
I love Poe. Oh. There's actually a wonderful statue of Edgar Allan Poe in not far from the Boston Public Gardens, and it is one of my favorite bronze statues I've ever seen. It's great. It's got like a giant raven flying out of a suitcase. And just like, oh, it's so good.
And you. Farewell, friend.
I like that she's wearing pants. Now there's a woman who just went ahead and adapted. Oh, interesting. So we've got one of the Anubis statues and one of Kekti. How's it going, Kavash?
It is an honor to finally meet you, Oracle. You know my name? Oh, of course. You are an Oracle. You know many things.
I do know many things.
I too would like to offer my thanks for releasing us from that place, and for your role in bringing us here. This world is truly wondrous. For a time, I returned to Alexandria, but they have no need of another fisherman, and I came to see there is nothing for me there. Instead, I have decided to follow the custom of your youths and backpack the world. It is a great adventure, and I have met many people from many cultures. I spent the first 25 years of my life avoiding the 42 sins that would deny me access to the afterlife. Now, I think it is time I had some fun.
Oh, the 42 sins that would deny you access to the afterlife. I don't know the specifics of that, but I suspect the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or similar. Anything that would make your heart heavier than the feather of Mat. Is hi, kitty. Your heart will never be heavier than a feather because you're perfect. All cats are best cat. But yeah, I can definitely imagine him backpacking around and, you know, having wrestled for so long in the underworld with the knowledge that what he believed was not correct. This makes sense. You break out of your shell and you need to go see other things.
Indeed. Thank you, Oracle.
Here we have some new stuff. More Egyptian statuary. So, we have a pharaonic statue wearing the pharaonic crest, holding what look like canopic jars, so probably a funerary statue.
What is up?
What is up with you, my friend? And this is beautiful, but I don't recognize it. So a woman fully dressed in Egyptian linen. She's got some writing along the side here. I don't know this particular statue. She is holding this little box, probably a miniature sarcophagus of some kind, with what looks like a carving of a deity on the front. It looks like the head has been broken off, but it has the crook and flail, so quite possibly Osiris again. Just very intricately worked. You see those flat Egyptian hands, very common in Egyptian stonework. And this, a Sumerian statue. I don't have a ton of experience with statues like this, but you can see the long beard style, the very blocky gestures, and the particular style of headdress, and here the psychopomp that was figured in the Sumerian ruins that we saw. Here's Scintilla in an adorable little sailor dress. Totally appropriate to her
Hello there.
Her sense of style, I think. Why? What is with these necklines? No, that's not how clothing lies. Her boobs are clearly too big for this dress. No. Programmers.
Oh, I go by Gabriella now. I didn't want to be reminded of that monster every time I heard my own name. After you drove Pluto off, Proserpina came and released me, and that monster got what was coming to him.
Ooh, cold.
I'm living with Ulpius on a little vineyard in Umbria. It's even more wonderful than I dreamed it would be. I'm so grateful to you for making sure he's still with us. If you're ever passing through the region, I hope you'll come and visit us. You can try some of our very own wine. Thanks. You too.
What's up, Ulpius?
It's nice to finally put a face to the name. I'm Ulpius. I understand I have you to thank for sending Galerius to save my life. The way you just showed up out of the blue and stopped me from making a terrible mistake. I'll be forever in your debt.
No debts. No more debts, Ulpius.
I'm living with Gabriella in Umbria. We finally bought the little vineyard we always dreamed of. It'll be a little while before we know what we're doing, but every day I look at her and this extraordinary new world with all its beauty, and I think, what if I'd given up hope? And missed out on all of this. So we're living each day to the fullest. And we end them all the same way. Sitting together on our terrace with a glass of our wine, which the locals say is almost drinkable now, and watching the sunset over the rolling hillside. And I couldn't be happier. Thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. You too.
Wait a second. I'm gonna talk to Virgil first.
It's so nice to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you. I wanted to thank you personally for getting us out of there. And for helping Rufus come to terms with himself. He may come off a little gruff, but once you get past that, he's a lovely fellow.
Did they really? Are they together? Oh my god. Please, yes?
I'm studying to be an architect again, and living with Rufus in our beautiful flat in Rotterdam. Just down the river from Nijmegen, where I grew up. Of course, it's improved immensely since I was there last. Gleaming futuristic buildings and clean streets full of educated, accepting people. You natives of the 21st century have no idea how fortunate you are. You too. If you're ever in the Netherlands, we'd love to show you around. It's the least we could do.
Rufius, what the heck, man?
Nice to meet you.
Look at this bright red shirt. He's still comfortable in his old sort of army getup. And Virgil too, in his, sort of light blue. That was the color of his tunic.
I go by Rufus now. New start, new name. Oh, and thanks, by the way, for what you did. Sorry, I'm no good with the mushy stuff. I live with Virgil in Rotterdam, not far from where he grew up. It's very modern. Destroyed in the war, and it rebuilt itself. Good place for a fresh start. Haven't decided what I'm going to do with my life yet. One adjustment at a time.
I wonder what I'll say to that.
Good to know. Anyway, it was good practice for the new world.
Security cameras and smartphones everywhere. Got to stay vigilant.
He's not wrong.
You too. Look us up next time you're in the Netherlands. We're grateful.
Alright. Are these signs any better? No, they're worse. They're the same sign, in a different place. I hate it. Look, here's the great archway from between the forum and the steps down to the villas. And what do we got here? Oh, it's the plaque, Greek plaque, the lyre, and one of the vases that we saw around. Oh, this. Oh, the boxer is an actual Greek statue. I've actually seen this one in person. It's terribly impressive. They've recreated, there's a little bit of pigment left on the gloves. They would have been red, and they make these gloves, they're weighted in the top. And he has, can you see it? Yeah, he has cauliflower ears from boxing. This is a gorgeous statue. Another of our Greek vases, another lion statue, the geometric period Greek vase. Oh, this is an antique, an early archaic kudos. Male statue, a Greek statue, adapted from the Egyptian style. You can see he's got his arms firmly by his side because they haven't gotten to the point where they're doing that, like carving out the middle and leaving a spur thing. Can't see here. Can't get close enough here. He probably has what they call the archaic smile. For whatever reason, the style at the time was to carve kind of a Mona Lisa smile onto to make a neutral expression, and the eyes would have been very big, and of course it would have all been painted. But you can see the hips are very straight, unlike a lot of those Apollos we saw earlier with the hips cocked and the feet back and forth, but you do get this interesting articulation in the knees. Here we have a Sumerian Lamassu, the bull body, lion paws, eagle wings, and man's head. I've seen those in person too. They're fabulous. These are much better, but incorrect. They're not pointing the correct way at all. And what is with the fig leaf? There wasn't a fig leaf on that statue. We've got the Sumerian crockery that we saw down there, and the cuneiform tablet. Oh, yeah. We've got that lovely little ritual object. Nobody knows what it's for. What was this one? Ah, yes. So it appears that the site has been excavated. Oh, it's apparently nighttime. We're in the museum at night, that's why there are no other visitors, I suppose. Ah, we have those sort of Egyptian tool sets that we saw a lot in the Duat. The Egyptian sort of geometric paint, funerary statue we saw earlier, the Egyptian plaque, another vase, a smaller lion statue, also often found in funerary contexts if I recall correctly. Oh, this is also a real artifact. Oh, who is this? Oh, I've not seen this one in person, but this is a very important piece of statuary was found in Egypt. I want to say that it is not a pharaoh, but an architect and his wife, or something like that. I wish I had an Egyptologist in the chat right now, because I do not remember what this piece is, but it is really, really stunning. I mean, just look at the depth of carving, the intricate braids in the hair, the position of the arms in relation to one another. Very cool stuff. This is also a real artifact. You can tell by the intricate hair that it is a much later sculpture. Look at all those deep folds. Probably some kind of Aphrodite sculpture, but I cannot recall offhand. I wish they had signage in here, but they don't, because they're not a real museum. But yes, so clearly a much later carving, probably Roman era. She's got this garland of flowers that she's holding. And this very intricate hairdo. But again, women not often depicted topless in Greek and Roman statuary unless they are Aphrodite. So I'm assuming that's an Aphrodite. Grave stela. So these are like gravestones, and depending on the period, like you get to a point where they're made in shops, and like they would just leave the face uncarved until a customer came in. This one is very well done. It's a woman with intricately braided hair. She's dressed in a Greek chiton. You can kind of see through her clothes, so this is indicating that it's kind of later, probably 3rd century, maybe 2nd. And then what's presumably a slave, a maid with a bottle of perfume. So a wealthy woman's grave stele. Here we have our classic little lamp that we saw everywhere. Sort of plain cups, the Christian or the early Christian carving, the garum bottle that is a real garum bottle, the Latin plaque, the Roman dice tower, my favorite. I didn't see a Senate board. It's kind of nice. Okay. So this is a bit different, and I don't know what statue that is. It's clearly a late statue. I don't know of any statue that's actually holding a mirror, that we have the mirror for at least. Though that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Another copy of our obelisk. A modern artifact.
There you are. I hope you enjoyed that.
I
now,
did.
there's one more person I wanted to introduce you to. I think you know her.
We're gonna get to meet Proserpina?
Sorry if I frightened you. Just a little joke I've been saving for a long, long time. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Proserpina, former goddess of the cycle of life and renewal, and now a regular mortal. I wanted to meet you in person, and thank you for freeing all these people, and me. I hate to think what would have happened to us without your intervention.
Again, with the what is she wearing? Who wears a sweat? Who makes a sweater dress with one shoulder? No.
Indeed. Suffice it to say that while Pluto was controlling the eyes and ears of each golden statue, I was able to control their tongues and whisper to you when he was distracted. I am sorry my messages were so cryptic. There were only ever brief windows in which I could speak to you without being detected. I did. I may have given up my immortality, but I still retain my gifts as the goddess of the cycle of life and renewal. After witnessing Pluto punish countless poor souls over thousands of years, I knew this generation, the final wave, would not survive. So I tried to give them a way to buy more time. A second chance. Rather, as many second chances as they needed to avoid his wrath.
I do wonder what became of...
I don't know what happened to him. I haven't heard from him, and I rather hope it stays that way.
Ouch. Guess their marriage fell apart.
Oh, she inherited dominion over the underworld. Last time we spoke, she was working on a new world of some kind. She wouldn't say what it was, but I'd be surprised if you don't run into her again. I imagine we all will, one day.
That's fascinating, and I guess that explains why she was still around.
And you, although it feels like I've known you forever. Oh, and one last thing. Do you remember all those golden statues scattered throughout the city? Good, because they remember you. Well done, my friend. Of all the heroes who ever journeyed to the underworld and returned, none came close to achieving what you did. Hercules, Orpheus, Theseus, and Aeneas would be proud.
Those statues were meant to be Hercules, Orpheus, Odysseus, and Aeneas? And me in the center in the fountain. Oh, wow! Okay, it's been more than 2 hours this stream. That was not what I was expecting, but we did finally finish the game. And so thank you so much for sticking with me through all of these streams. I've had a wonderful time. I'm gonna take the next 2 weeks probably off to set up my next game and figure out how to stream it properly. I have had just a blast, and I hope you have too. Thank you so much, and keep learning, friends.